I've seen many battles throughout my life. I've seen monsters duking it out to see who was superior. I've seen superheroes who battle ideologies to see which ones are correct and which ones were personal. And I've now seen monsters who battled before but never to this scale. So, did this movie manage to be awesome in its own right? Well, that's the question we have for today, which is going to be a review about the Godzilla vs. Kong movie. So, Warner Bros. Finally released a movie which Godzilla and King Kong battle it out. And although this King Kong is not the one that we see in previous movies, the one with the Skull Island, falls in love with a woman or befriends her, I'd say fall in love because it's kind of weird to say that, but dies in the end, the beauty tames the beast, all that sort of thing, and then we got Godzilla, who was basically a monster, destroying cities, blah blah blah, an anti-hero perhaps, but today's movie is about two of the most monstrous monsters battling for superiority. But then again, there are previous movies that were kind of leading up to that moment. So how about we just go through the emotions and see all the movies that came before? Let's start with the first Godzilla. So the first Godzilla movie was okay, but in hindsight it kind of be boring because it was too much focus on the humans instead of Godzilla. But the battle was okay and it was very spectacular to see. But maybe it's boring because of the human characters, so it's not that memorable. But it did have a good start. Kong Skull Island, like I said before, is not the typical King Kong movie, but it did have a good environment of Skull Island. We have seen it before with the whole Indians putting the humans in sacrifice, all sorts of monsters and stuff. There are no dinosaurs, there are very various creatures, as well as skull crawlers that are kind of creepy. And King Kong, in my opinion, is kind of fun, and in many respects, I like it better than the ones that I've seen in previous movies, but only because of the sympathy factor. But that's just my opinion, that you don't have to agree. And then we got Godzilla King of the Monsters. This was the first movie I didn't saw on the big screen because I wasn't interested on that. Even though I was excited for the King Kong vs. Godzilla movie, I never got the interest in this movie, even though it had a lot of monsters from the previous Godzilla movies like King Ghidorah and Mothra. And the character motivation on this movie is kind of questionable to say the least, especially from Vera Farmiga's character. She was kind of cuckoo cray cray to say the least. But the action was great, the characters were not as annoying as the other first movies. And now we got the King Kong movie versus Godzilla that we wanted from years. In fact, this is not the first time they actually fought. In fact, there is a movie from years past that even though I never saw, it was like the first time we see a King Kong vs. Godzilla movie. I never saw that movie, so I can't say if it's good or anything, so don't expect me to say anything from that previous movie. Just, I'm gonna put all my focus and all my energy into this movie to see if it works, if it doesn't work, and if it does, let's see what it does. Let's see what Godzilla has in store for us. Let's see what King Kong's motivations are for fighting Godzilla. And let's see how the human characters find a way to screw it up all over again. So what's the plot? It's pretty much simple. Godzilla is attacking cities for no reason whatsoever. So Monarch as well as Apex Cybernetics are depending on Kong in order to fight Godzilla, as well as finding the origin of all the Kaiju monsters like Mothra, Ghidorah. Actually, Ghidorah is an alien monster, so that doesn't count. But basically they're trying to find Hollow Earth, and it's up to Kong to find out what it is. And it's a battle of the ages as Godzilla vs. Kong is now on, and we have to see who's the last one standing. Now, I could start talking about the human characters since they were the ones with personality and motivations, but I think I want to start with Kong since it has personality as well. Because Kong, in many respects, there's a lot of Kong in this movie, more than Godzilla, but that's because we already saw Godzilla in previous movies. In fact, he gets two movies and Kong only one. So I think it's fair to dedicate a lot of time to Kong and the reasons why he's doing what he's doing. Because in many respects, he has a personality in this movie. He feels lost, but he feels connected to the human characters. Especially with one called Gia. She's a little girl, so she can only communicate by expressions because she's mute and deaf. And in many respects, they form a bond with each other, they communicate, he feels more like home with her, as well as with Irene Andrews, played by Rebecca Hall. And in many respects, he's more like a hero in this movie than Godzilla. Not that Godzilla is not a hero before, but in this movie, he destroys cities for pretty much undisclosed reasons. So I think Kong is a hero that people see, feels right in this movie. Now, Godzilla doesn't get much screen time in this movie, but given the fact that we got two movies back to back about Godzilla, I think it's fair enough that it doesn't appear as much as in this movie. But he still protects the people and the planet from, well, us, since we find ways to screw things up. And, well, in this movie is no exception. Now let's talk about the human characters, starting with Gia, since she has a connection with King Kong like I said before. She doesn't talk, she doesn't hear anything, so she only communicates with Kong via expressions. And I think it's kind of genuine. In fact, this movie has a lot of quiet scenes in which I actually enjoy more. And even though this movie is pretty stupid in terms of kaiju monsters and character motivations, I think this movie has a legit good scenes with Gia and Kong, and she feels like the heart of the movie in many respects. Gia is accompanied by her mother, or her adopted mother, Irene Andrews, who is played by Rebecca Hall. Now, this character, just like in the other previous human characters that we saw before, she still has like one-dimensional characters, but she feels genuinely good and she wants to help Kong to find a home. So that's good. Nathan Lin, who's played by Alexander Skarsgård, I hope I pronounced that name well, his motivation is to find Hollow Earth in honor to his brother. So he needs the help of Kong in order to find Hollow Earth, as well as making more discoveries. So even though he's kind of egotistical and as well as too much of a chip on the shoulder kind of guy, he feels legitimately good, and at least he's not doing this for the money or for the fame, because let's face it, it's kind of the expected in characters like that. We get returning characters like Madison Russell, who is played by Millie Bobby Brown. Now, the character in the previous movie is pretty much stuck in between the battles between her father and her mother. But in this case, she wants to legitimately understand why Kong is attacking cities, as well as finding out why he's just destroying everything. So she gets the help from a guy named Bernie, as well as her partner Josh, in order to find out what's going on with Kong. Even though I actually like the character of Madison and the actors who plays her, I feel like this movie doesn't do much with her. In terms of, she just goes to find out what's going on, and even though she finds out, she doesn't do much of substance. Even though her father, played by Kyle Chandler, is in this movie, he just feels like a cameo at this point. Not a criticism, but it's pretty much what I feel about this movie. There is the only characters that, even though they have stakes in the previous movies, they don't have like too much stake in this one. Even though although I will say this, Bernie actually I enjoy a lot because he's the kind of character who is funny but also tragic at the same time. And he wants to uncover a mystery, which is kind of funny. And he's a guy who makes podcasts. So as a guy who makes podcasts himself, I actually enjoy that. So kudos for that movie. Insane. And Josh was played by, well, Fire First from the Deadpool movie, you know, Russell. But yeah, in this movie, even though his voice looks more mature, he's kind of funny too. And helping Madison as well as Bernie is kind of cool to see him doing that. But like I said before, they don't do too much of a substance in this movie, but that's just a nitpick. And in the end, it's just something that I feel about this movie. And now for the main villains of this movie. It used to be the Skull Crawlers, King Ghidorah, and the Mutos. But in this case, we get to see the human villains in this movie because as humans, we love to screw things up even though we don't intend to, but we always do. We get to see Walter Simmons and his daughter Maya, who is played by Damian Bichir and Eiza Gonzalez. They're Latinos, so why name them Walter and Simmons? And Maya Simmons? Like, I don't get that. They're Latino, but they don't look very American in my opinion. It doesn't matter. So they believe they're the same. The Godzilla is a monster, they need to stop him, and for that they need research from Hollow Earth as well as create their own monster. I'll get into that into the spoiler territory, but needless to say, they just see Godzilla as a threat, so they need to stop it. But because of that, they need to betray humans, they have to do the whole 90s wanting to do all of that for the money and fame kind of thing, but typical. But in this case, it works for this movie, and at least they came in with their comeuppance. So for that, I am appreciative for that. So it's pretty much a CG battle, unlike the previous movie in which it was all rubber monsters. Now in this case, it's all CG, but I have to say, I like the CG battle because we see the scales of their battle. We see the scales of Kong, we see the designs of Kong. He looks very animalistic, but also like an intelligent human creature. We also see Godzilla, that it always looks good in CG, even though it was all part of the special effects that we always see. But he looks like a monster, he gets to do his things, his atomic breath is awesome. Their battles between the other cities as well as in the sea are incredible to watch. They fight like on top of human boats, and they just keep throwing punches at each other, they keep making noises, they keep roaring, they keep upping the ante, they keep just battling all over again. And their battle in Hong Kong is impressive to say the least. And there's a lot of action in this movie. There's a lot of sitting down and talking, but there is also good action, good characters, and good monsters because we get to see Hollow Earth, and it's basically what we imagine a kaiju will come from. And there's a lot of monsters and sorts of creatures, and it's just awesome to see. Personally, I just enjoy watching that, and I love to see Kong like doing a lot of moves as well as doing the Stormbreaker kind of thing because he gets an axe in this movie. With the action in this movie, it's just amazing. I feel like this is a movie that you just turn your brain off in order to just enjoy. Now, heads up, there's just a spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen Kong vs. Godzilla or Godzilla vs. Kong, I suggest you stop the video here because I'm going to reveal something that is being hiding in this movie, but not much in the marketing, but it's important to mention. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop the video here and just wait and see the movie. And if you have already, it's time to reveal it. So, what was Apex's plan in order to combat Godzilla? Well, pretty simple. They create Mechagodzilla. Yeah, the thing that we saw in the Japanese movies as well as in other versions and video games is come true. They finally create a Mechagodzilla. And they're using King Ghidorah's DNA in order to control it, which, let's face it, that backfires and Mechagodzilla starts wreaking havoc. So it's up to Godzilla and Kong to work together in order to defeat it. And it's, let's just say, it's glorious. It's like the movie that I always wanted to see. Like, we want to see Godzilla and Kong fighting each other, but we also want to see the monsters teaming up in order to combat this other monster, this mechanical monster that just wants to destroy everything. And I gotta say, it fits with the movie's morality. Nature versus nurture. Technology versus nature. It's just, this is what the theme that the other movies had. Like, the necessity of finding a common ground in which nature always fights technology and the advances and everything. It's a common thing in Godzilla movies because that's how the first Godzilla started, with the commentary on everything that we do as humans, how we use technology just to do wars and weapons and all that. That's the theme of this movie too. Like, using the technology to tame nature when it's not supposed to do that. But in this case, even though with that fact, I always enjoy watching two monsters fighting each other. And like I said, I don't have to turn my brain on in order to enjoy it. I love to see Godzilla and Kong fighting, and that's just incredible. So yeah, Mechagodzilla is the villain, or it's King Ghidorah controlling Mechagodzilla since they're using the DNA. It doesn't matter. At the end, Godzilla managed to work with Kong and they both destroyed the Mechagodzilla. And that's all for this movie. So, although I will say this, there was supposed to be an after credit scene in which it would involve aliens attacking Earth, so it's up to Godzilla and Kong to work together now, but we never saw that because the director removed it, or I think it was the studio, because we didn't know how the movie was going to do in box office since the pandemic is still on, but they're reopening the theaters, so we just have to wait and see. But as far as I'm concerned, this movie is doing well, so I'm just hoping for another movie. If not, I'll be satisfied because I don't know how they're going to top that. So let's just say if this is the last movie, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So, what do I think about the movie? It's stupid. It's a waste of time, but as far as movies go, was a fun waste of time and a good reminder of movies being enjoyable. Like, they don't have to be Oscar worthy or trying to be like, oh, years in the building kind of thing. It just has to be something fun, something that we always tune up and say, hey, look at this monster's fighting, look at this Godzilla thing throwing a building, or Kong swimming from the jungle or something like that. Like, it's a movie that you want to enjoy and you don't feel like it's insulting your intelligence. It's just a movie that just wants to do a Godzilla versus Kong movie. Like, monsters fighting each other. It doesn't have anything to say, but it doesn't say anything less relevant. And the theme between nature versus nurture is still there, so I appreciate that. The characters in this movie are actually enjoyable. I actually enjoy a monster movie in which the humans are not exactly annoying or just plain simple. They actually have a stake in this movie. Not that we got in the other ones, but after 3 movies, I'd say they just overstayed their welcome. But in this movie, not so much. So yeah, just watch it. Just enjoy the ride. Bring your friends, your families. Just watch this movie and just turn your brain off, and I promise you it's fun. It's not a glowing review since I don't take it piece by piece, but it's Godzilla vs. Kong. I actually wanted to see a movie that would make me think less. Not that I don't want to think more, but I want to see just a fun movie. Just like Marvel, just like other movies. Just turn your brain and just have fun. That's all I have to say. So that's my review. It's not glowing, but it's Godzilla vs. Kong, so just have fun. So if you like this video, just like it, subscribe to this channel, and just put the notification bells. I promise I'll get more on podcasts as soon as possible. Next week, I'm not going to try to do another podcast, but I'm going to try something new. Or something I always wanted to do for this channel. So, I'm Enrique. I'll see you next time.